Chair. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nancy. So welcome to tonight's meeting of September 24th, 2024. Welcome, council, and we will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, it's 6:34.
Be it resolved that this regular meeting now open at 6:34 p.m. moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councillor Bajelli.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to our adoption of the agenda. If there's any amendments, deletion, or additions.
Okay, so.
So, which we do have an addition that will be added on to, so do we have the resolution? Rick?
Yep.
Perfect. Or the motion, sorry.
Be it resolved that the agenda as amended be approved as presented. The addition pertaining to the approved Aqua project management of the municipal class environment assessment and the required amendment thereof. Moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Before I, for those that didn't get the email, that was basically Aqua in regards to the Moose Creek. Maybe Craig, do you want to maybe add to that to specify?
Through the chair, there's the scope of work is going to be, or requested to be changed and approved by council, but we can get into the details once we get down to the unfinished business.
Okay. And the timeline, the frame is that we would like to pass this at this council meeting and not wait for October the 8th. So with the motion read, any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and nature thereof? Seeing none, moving on to, there is no delegation, so the adoption of minutes of previous meeting of September 10th.
Be it resolved that the following minutes be approved as presented. The regular meeting, September 10th minutes, moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Any questions on the minutes? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
I just noticed, I don't think Stephanie Murray was there. Just noting that she was listed under staff present.
I don't believe she
Yeah, that was probably, through the chair, that was probably a copying. If everyone's okay, I will fix that on the, I'll make a note that it was to be changed, so I'll remove her name from there.
Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Just a quick question on a semi-related matter. The committee of the whole, is there normally minutes that are produced for the committee of the whole meeting as well?
Through the chair, yes. Generally, the committee of the whole minutes are passed at the following committee of the whole meeting. So if we can do what we did for the quarter revision, we can bring it back to council, or depending if we have another committee of the whole, but generally that's how you pass those minutes.
Okay, I'll leave it to your discretion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to the adoption of minutes of committees and local boards. Was there any? Let me see, that's at the bottom, sorry. So there is no, so we can move on to the receiving of monthly staff reports and recommendations.
That the Council of the Township of North Stormont directs staff to prepare a bylaw to amend the allocation of water and wastewater capacity bylaw 10-2021 to allow the transfer of capacity between related parties. Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councillor Bajelli.
Thank you. Any questions in regards to, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
So in reading the report, I think one of the things was stated is that in general, we've never allowed people, like individuals, to reserve, owners to reserve connections. And I think that's a wise practice. I think it needs to go directly to the property. But can somebody explain to me how this doesn't effectively become the same way if you can transfer back and forth from property to property? Can somebody not just have a property, have something allotted, and then just give it away and they get another allotment? I'm not sure if it's Peter who speaks to that. Or...
Sure, I think the intention of this is sometimes during the year the plans can change. Originally, maybe there was one lot in the village. A lot of our developers that have capacity might have several lots that they have in, and sometimes in a subdivision, originally you planned to do, let's say 2 semis, or let's say a single, and then you did 2 semis instead, this would allow you to move within your development one lot to another. That's something that North Dundas has right in their bylaw that North Stormont that we don't at this time. The other one was even, the original request came from within the village. Someone, they originally wanted to do a triplex. Now they have another property and they'd like to do it on that. There's not really a process to do that. We could have it subject to a council resolution rather than staff approval. But the challenge is we do a lot of the allocations at the beginning of the year, and that capacity stays with that person. So we don't have have a process for them to come back if the plans change during the year. But we don't want it to be that, oh, we're just reserving capacity and we're just gonna hoard it on our properties. That's not the intent. It's just, if someone has it and they change their plans, it's still to build the same amount of units, let's say 3 on one and 3 on the other. It just means they can't build, they'll have 0 for their one property and 6 for the other property. So it's not like they're getting extra units, they're just moving them around within the allocation. They already have.
Is it just between, an owner can only do that within their own properties, or can they transfer over to a different owner?
They would not, it has to be, we'll define in the bylaw, but related, like the same corporation or the same person or that type of thing. So like for Moose Creek, the example would be like within the G&E purchased a bunch of the lots, maybe within that development, they could move capacity. I think in one case, they wanted to build smaller singles instead of originally doing the semis and maybe a slightly different lot configuration. So it's just that same developer with their own lots, and they're not getting any more units. They're just moving them to different property. They already own.
Okay, great. No, I agree 100% with the flexibility. I just wanted to be sure it couldn't be gained
Yeah,
as
or,
best we can.
and the other challenge, we don't want them to resell, just
Yes.
hoard it, and then, oh, I have a lot with capacity, give me an extra 10,000.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions in regards to the allocations? Peter, if, usually I believe it's at this time of year, so with this allocation, do we not get a report of what's allocated for infill, what's allocated for different, I know right now we're tight on things in Moose Creek, but do we not have in our bylaw data, or when do we prepare that document?
I think it's March or April, it is, I think it might be in the bylaw itself, but it's usually, I think the last one was March or in the spring, just kind of before building. So we kind of canvass everyone, you know, your capacity is running out, do you want to reapply, or anyone we know of? But it's in the spring is when that's reported back to council.
Okay, and this here, does the amendment change as far as what we've got? Like what is specific to so when I seen wastewater capacity bylaw, I thought in my head, I was trying to, and there was no report, and I read through and my question was, is this where we allocate so many? So when we are getting tight on our capacity and so many has to be allocated for infill lots in a village versus the developers, so the developers don't take them all. And I was just wondering, is there the amendments that we're making, is there drastic changes that we should see or is it pretty something that you could explain?
So when we report back to council, sorry, I just double checked, it's prior to January 31st, but sometimes it doesn't happen until the spring. But around that time, that's when we'll say, here's how much has already been allocated, here's how much we have left, here's the split for infill versus new developments. So it's done at that time. We're not proposing to change any of that. It's just unless council gives us direction.
Yeah.
But if council approves this resolution, we'll come back to revise the bylaw to give CAO authorization to make adjustments with the same owner.
Yeah.
But we would still go back to council in the spring to say, here's how much you have left for infill, here's how much for new development. And
that part doesn't
allocations.
change?
Yeah, that part doesn't change.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Perfect, I appreciate it. So all in favor of accepting the report? Motion is carried. Moving on to item 7.2, sidewalk requirements in regards to Countryside Acres subdivision in Chrysler.
The Council of the Township of North Stormont provide clearance of condition 22 pedestrian plan for Phase 1 of the Countryside Acres subdivision in Chrysler, moved by Councillor Bajelli, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. So, does council prefer, is there questions that maybe we'll start discussions, or do we get Peter to maybe, Peter, maybe you
Yeah,
could
I'll
just.
just give a high level. So the recommendation, I understand based on the last discussion, the council was leaning towards just the sidewalks on County Road 12 and not within the village, but there wasn't we discussed it at the draft condition stage, but there wasn't a direction specifically given. So the condition was given that they come up with a sidewalk and pedestrian plan. Developers said instead of that, we'd like to do a wider platform. So they have, you can see the cross section there. It's kind of wider than you see in some of the other communities. So my recommendation ultimately would still be based on the original draft conditions, look at the Ann Street, Stan Street, and then along the county road. If you look at our surrounding municipalities, it's kind of a mix. So if you're in Castleman or in Nation, a lot of their new ones don't necessarily have sidewalks. You're in Russell, South Stormont, the newer ones do. So ultimately, it's up to council. I think, again, for staff, we'd recommend that a development of more of a plan. The developers come back and they've said from the beginning they don't want to do sidewalks, and this is their plan, so that's fair enough. We don't have a subdivision manual that makes it mandatory. It's development by development, and all the other developments in North Stormont don't have sidewalks. I don't think none of the newer. So the reason that we propose for this one is because it is denser, and you're gonna have more cars and traffic than you would have with the other subdivision. But I think the cons are in the report as well. Ultimately, there's more of a maintenance and replacement cost. And eventually we might need new sidewalk plows and all those type of things for more use. Ultimately, if council chooses now to not have sidewalks, it could be retrofitted in the future. There is a couple meters on each side of the curb, but then it would be up the cost of the municipality and not the developer at that point. But it is something that, let's say 10 years from now, the whole thing's built out and there's concerns regarding all the traffic at that point, it could still be retrofitted later on. So I'll, through the mayor, pass it back to you if there's any questions or concerns.
Thank you. So I'll start. So my, I guess it's a negotiation. Once we fall outside of the parameters of the subdivision, so on the county road, then to determine the cost. So my view was, okay, we don't necessarily look at putting sidewalks in the subdivision, but then is it just basically a negotiation, or to basically say, okay, well, how about if, because my main concern or intent is to make sure that the sidewalk on the county road that will link the development to the south side of the town, like across the bridge, is right now a big concern of mine as far as the traffic. The existing subdivision right now on the Provo, on the west side, is I don't think acceptable, and we have to start looking. And I'm wondering if we not renege, but if we eliminate, or not eliminate, but don't see a need in the subdivision with the wider road, I don't foresee having to, again, Public Works tending to more and more sidewalks, like you say, more snow blowers or machinery that's needed and so on. So, but the main county road would be of my concern. Could there be, have you seen in the past as far as negotiating on, say, I don't know where we are with the subdivision agreement now, but phase 2 of the next one moving forward to stipulate that need?
Yeah, so right now that section is just blank. We can charge it for, so just to take a step back, as a condition of subdivision, you can ask for infrastructure within the development. You can't ask for off-site work. So we couldn't say we want to connect all the way from the Bridge Street all the way up to, or for Charles Street, I mean, all the way up to the subdivision, because those are off-site works. They're supposed to be paid through development charges. We can ask for it for along the frontage of the development, because that's kind of associated with this project. So if we were to do that, through block 154, you'll see on the plan, they have some future multi-residential blocks. So once those are developed through site plan, we'd be asking for sidewalk extensions over there. The same thing really with block 155. It's more of a multi-res block, and we could have a little bit there, but we couldn't go all the way down south to George or to Charles Street, because those are all off-site works that should be paid through either development charges or property taxes. Within the development, we can ask for sidewalks, but, and along the frontage where we're creating those new lots, you can ask for sidewalks, but you can't
So say
request
along,
a large connection all the way down the street.
along 155 and 154 would be considered.
Yeah, I mean, even then, the challenge is there's not, it's actually, there's some property between that. But I know we've been talked about whether we can connect to like Gloss Street, I think it is, Gloss or George, the one that goes around there.
Yeah,
There is room on the county right of way to do that. But in terms of going any further than that, it would be up to the taxpayers to pay that, or through future development charges if they were applied to the subdivision.
but just in line, so from block 155 going up to
The end of the subdivision.
Matheson Street, like going up to in front of their development. So from block 153, which is right by Mrs. Armstrong's property, then you've got Matheson, then you've got block 54, you've got Provo Street,
Yeah.
block 55. Along those, which lies right in front, would that be,
Yes, so as those future phases get developed, that's through council's direction, that's what we'd be asking for. Right now, they're only doing
first,
for the
yeah.
south part, but
Yeah.
if that's the direction we're getting from council, we'll definitely be asking for that for all the future phases. And then asking for, I guess, maybe a connection from here to, so the part of this is the county right of way, and part of it is their property doesn't actually go all the way to the road,
yeah,
but at least a pathway to there. But we can't go back all the way down to there. Just along the frontage of, just right where the subdivision is, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
no, thank you. Any further discussion, or Deputy Mayor Adension?
I'll just offer a few thoughts, and the mayor and I had a chance to discuss this beforehand. And I do like the idea of one way or the other getting a sidewalk on the county road. Again, to your point, Peter, that could potentially be through future development charges to help offset the cost for that. We'll be bringing in, as the houses go in, we'll be bringing in a greater tax base as well, so that could potentially help offset that. I like the idea of the sidewalks in, but given the fact that the roads are wider, and given the fact that most of in our municipality, areas do not have sidewalks, and granted, this is potentially one of the bigger subdivisions, I guess it's not a big subdivision yet, and it's going to be years before it gets to that size. And so I'm kind of the thinking, rather than building disparity in terms of some people get sidewalks, some don't, and we have to start caring for more sidewalks, I'm kind of saying let's let the future look after itself in that respect. And at some point, because what's going to happen is as soon as you start to have sidewalks in certain subdivisions, other areas are going to want them as well. And I think that starts to become a very big decision that we have to work on with Public Works in terms of what are the implications of rolling out a whole sidewalk strategy, if you will. And I see that potentially being more a big project. We have enough big projects right now that we're working on. I see that as potentially being a project for a future term, should people want to go that way. So I'm kind of leaning on not having sidewalks within, but the vision should be to have the sidewalk on the county road for now.
So go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, so I feel like it would be good planning to have the sidewalks at least on the two major streets, Helen and Stan. I think with the density that they have there, I do feel a little concerned for the future build out and how, people, especially if they have kids, darting in and out of cars, because they seem to do that. I do think it would be good planning to have sidewalks there, but I also don't disagree with Deputy Mayor Densham saying it seems like this is something that requires everyone to sort of be on the same page, from maintenance and operations to planning to council to residents of what our vision is, since we don't really have them right now. But I do worry a little bit that we're missing out on having the developer pay for this cost and putting that cost on future taxpayers. I don't know if that's wise or smart of us to do. But I will just maintain, as well as the mayor mentioned this, but the minimum for me is getting the sidewalks on the county road. And if that's all that we end up getting, then I'll be okay with that. Because there's currently like a safety issue in our community that we need to address. So I don't know how I heard you saying phases and different timelines, but like that needs to be a priority. There's currently kids, again, with the kids, there's adults that could get hit too, but there's a lot of kids in our community, and I love seeing that, but I'm really, really concerned we're gonna have a fatality on that road. And I'm not the only one who's worried about that. So all that to say, I'm supportive of the direction of council generally, although I do think it would be better planning if we push forward for sidewalks. I'll sit back and say that's something we can address more comprehensively. But I can't really accept any more delays on the sidewalks on the county road. Like, I'd really like to know when that's coming and have a developer clearly agree to it, because I'm also getting a little concerned about, you know, we ask for something and people coming back and trying to negotiate for something else, so.
Yeah, I can speak to, we're working with the developer for the new commercial site to come up with a design, and I'm not sure that if that'll be in budget or not, but at least we'll have that design prepared for extending it. And then we'd like to go kind of meet and work with between Blake and County Roads and work on that. There's definitely challenges with the property there. There's not a lot of right of way and some utilities, but we're kind of working with what we have. So I think one of the conditions for the site plan is for the commercial site is to have a sidewalk that'll be along the county road, at least on the west side. And then the challenge, I think, will be how do you cross to this new development? And then how do you get north where the house is pretty much right on the right of way on the north end of George Street? It is a paved shoulder, but I think, as you said, sidewalk would be better, but we, through Public Works and planning, we are working on that. I don't have a timeline yet though, but at least the design part of it is being developed. And just sorry to the other question about policy, we are working with, I know EVB is actually working for the counties and the municipalities on developing a subdivision manual. Then we'd have kind of more prescriptive requirements that here's where we need a sidewalk, here's where we don't need a sidewalk for all new developments, rather than doing a case-by-case basis. So that document will eventually be presented to council, so it'll be more council-adopted policy on here's where, you know, on a short street, we don't need a sidewalk, on a longer street, over this many meters, we need a sidewalk. So even if council doesn't support this or request a sidewalk today, we'll come back in the next few months with a manual where you set your council policy where you want sidewalks and don't want them going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Further question, Councillor Shane?
Not so much a question. I agree with Councillor McDonald that I was under the impression that there was going to be some sidewalks in this subdivision. It would be nice on the main streets, however, I agree, we definitely need one along the county road. It's very busy, and likely a future crosswalk in there. There's a lot of kids, you see them on the side of the road, there's a lot of traffic coming through town, and it's only going to be more and more. So maybe a future consideration for the subdivision as it gets bigger.
Further questions, Councillor
I
Bajaj?
might as well chime in just so that we're all, everyone's on the record on this. I tend to agree. As far as going into the actual subdivision at this point now, once you do certain streets here and there, it will be a domino effect where every other subdivision or different parts of established areas will want sidewalks. I don't think we're equipped for that yet. I think that is something that we'd have to look at longer term strategy, especially when it comes to public works and municipal tractors that are required to clear streets and the manpower and hours that go along with that. But I do feel the necessity, obviously, and to take a very hard-nosed approach that these sidewalks along the county roads it's a matter of public safety, and it needs to be a priority in the short term.
Thank you. So this right now is, do you need,
If
Direction.
you accept the resolution is based to accept the developer's proposal, which I think was discussed previously when they presented to council. Unless council wants to give us another direction to have sidewalks, but we will go back for the County Road 12, is the sense I get from council. But if council wants us to put sidewalks on Stan or the other streets, you would need to amend the resolution, I think.
so as the motion is read, and just before I do go to a vote, in regards to, you're saying EVB, so is that led by the counties that are doing a
Yeah, so
subdivision?
we're taking, so South Stormont, South Dundas have subdivision manuals and North Dundas as well. And we hired to do a joint subdivision manual, especially for municipalities like North Glengarry and North Stormont that didn't have a manual. So we're kind of getting in the final stages of that. I know we have a meeting hopefully in October to review that with Public Works and staff, and then eventually we'll present that to council for input as well. So that's kind of a joint with all the municipalities. And it's different for some municipalities will have certain cross sections and some will prefer other ones. So North Stormont can choose whichever fits this municipality best.
Perfect. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Moving on to the delegated authority bylaw.
The Council of the Township of North Stormont receives this key information report on delegated authority bylaws for information purposes. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
So any discussion, pretty standard, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving into our municipal bylaw, so item 8.1, bylaw number 79-2024 in regards to our procurement of goods and services.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 79-2024, being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw number 38-2017, to regulate the procurement of goods and services by the Corporation of the Township of North Stormont, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed this 24th day of September 2024. Moved by Councillor Shane, seconded by Councillor Bajelli.
Perfect. Any discussion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, we had some really good discussion at the Committee of the Whole on this topic, and I know I showed some concern about disqualifying some of the tenders. So, and having reflected on that discussion, what I'm going to propose, and I did have a quick chat with the treasurer beforehand, and I think she believes it's feasible, but I'll leave it for her to express that. What I'd like to see, because again, to the concern that I have, I don't know how much of a concern it really is, right? So what I'm going to propose is that when we receive a report for tenders that are being put forward, what I'd like to see on that report are not just the qualified bids that come in, but also any bids that have been disqualified. They can be anonymized. I don't need to know who it is, but what I'd like to see is the bid amount and the reason for disqualification alongside the ones that qualify. That way, if this is really a non-issue, I should almost never see that on any of the reports. But if it is an issue, then we'll start to see that trend, and we can address it in the future if necessary.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I think it's going to be better also that we have the documentation going out with the tenders that say this is how your bid is going to be disqualified. This is what the criteria, which I think will be helpful. Also, with a non-public meeting, we have time to analyze and make sure that all the ducks are in the row. And also for that, the recommendation to council, other items can be considered because it's not necessarily the lowest bidder, but if there's other concerns that, say, the Public Works Superintendent has, it should be noted in that report as well. So there's clear direction for council on the recommendation. So I have no problem with that.
Just a quick question, if I could, Mr. Mayor. Do we get a lot of disqualified bids?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the major thing is non-deposit, but I haven't seen a lot, honest to God. They're good.
Thank you. I'm good with that then, if council agrees.
Just, wasn't sure, so is this being brought for approval today? And was there changes made like
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no,
it's as
at the
was
council,
presented?
at the committee of the whole, basically, it was a discussion, there was no changes made.
Okay, so you're still comfortable with this proposal
Yes, I am.
as the treasurer? Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
And I was sleeping on this and thought, so some other government agencies will have passports, or one of them where they have a checklist. I don't know if that's something when we do send out. Hey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a documentation that says no bid, automatic rejection, failure to sign, automatic, not signed in ink, automatic rejection. So it is there, and we're going to incorporate that with the tenders when they go out, so that when the people get the tender packages, they have a very clear understanding.
Oh, what's, perfect. All good. Any further questions?
Just comments that I'm very comfortable with this at this point now as well. I'm completely in agreement with Deputy Mayor Densham that we can actually have a look to see if this is a trend. If it's not, then it's a non-factor and it's nothing we really need to worry about. But I really like that the emphasis is being put where the diligence is up front on us to make sure that the process is crystal clear, but that there's no responsibility or delegation for the for our staff to have to make a decision or make a call that could be, that could put them in a comfortable situation. So happy to support as is.
I agree. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving to item 8.2, bylaw number, our drafts.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, this was just, as we had a discussion through the committee of the whole, the bylaw does state that we have notice before any amendments or repeals can be done. So it's basically put in the agenda giving proper notice. And if there's no more questions or concerns, we'll bring it back and
Back
pass it
again.
at the next council meeting.
So this is basically
It's
just
just-
to accept the report for
Well,
further discussion is,
no, it's just a draft for council to review. If there's no more changes or concerns, we will bring it back at the next council meeting for passing.
Through the chair, that's accurate. There were a couple of minor amendments that council did request at the committee of the whole, and they've been embedded in this new document. So any changes that council requested are in this current draft, and it will come back October 8th for formal and final approval.
so basically we can get any questions on in this, just to give direction to administration. So any questions regarding that? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So I like it. The only one item that I questioned, and I'm not saying I disagree with it necessarily, but item 6.1.3 around special meetings, and it's mostly around it's around circulating the agenda. It gives you 48 hours in advance versus the 4 days. What I like about the 4 days that we have now is our council meeting is on Tuesday, so that gives us a weekend to sit down and read the reports. So my only fear is if the committee of the whole or the special meeting has more than 100 pages and we only have 2 days, and if people are busy those days, it may be tight. So I don't know how likely it is we're gonna have like 100 pages or 300 pages beforehand.
Through the chair, that 48-hour notice hasn't shifted, and certainly the deputy clerk can provide comment as well, but that has not changed in this draft from the previous draft, and there was never a request for a shift.
I was under the impression, so the 48 was more if we needed a closed meeting called, and sometimes
Or a special meeting that would be open. Yeah,
sometimes
correct.
time is not on our, if we have to hit but I don't generally would see 100 pages on a special meeting, is my opinion, but
Typically not. Leanne, would you like to?
So through the chair, what we can do is we can remove the committee of the whole under 6.1.3 and put it to 6.1.2 for 4 days' notice. It's more, the 48 hours was more if a special meeting had to be called quickly, that we can get it out, but we can certainly move the committee of the whole from 6.1.3 to 6.1.2 if the CAO agrees.
And through the
Council
mayor,
agrees to
the
that.
mayor is accurate. Usually that's a very narrow focused special meeting. It's usually for a particular item that is of an urgent nature. So we typically don't have a very expansive agenda. So traditionally there wouldn't be a whole lot of review for council, but again, for cautionary purposes, we can always revert back to the suggestion of the deputy clerk.
Yeah, which maybe that's exactly the reason I never picked up on it before, because I understood a special meeting to be really tight, usually for one or two purposes, or a committee of the whole. We did have I don't even know whether it was over 100 pages, but a more substantial package anyhow, so
So
I
definitely.
like the idea.
The committee of whole, from my experience, more so at the counties than, so I don't know if we, in my previous as counselor, if we've had committee of the whole, we do have them at the counties, but it's structured that it's an all-day affair. I find lots of times council gets to meet at a regular council meeting and it's a specific agenda that we're discussing on. And it hard, so often there's something that comes up that, hey, this would be a good topic to maybe review, where a committee of the whole has the opportunity for an afternoon, or which is, could be longer.
Through the chair, you're accurate. The committee of the whole is always a scheduled event, so it's always considerably longer than 48 hours. I don't know when we would ever generate or request a committee of the whole with 48 hours notice. I can't understand what the rationale would be. Special meetings, yes, as I already indicated, it would be for a very focused and very urgent matter, but committee of the whole, I could never see that happening. Through the chair, that's just my opinion.
So is council comfortable with if we move the committee of the whole, which I think specific to, could be longer topic discussions, but special meetings sticking to the 40? That makes sense. Any further questions on this matter? Go ahead, Councilor McDonald.
So we're moving to 6 PM start. And
So I'm comfortable with that, but again, that was kind of briefly discussed, but that's a great topic. So it's something that maybe council can speak up on, and so I think it's for staff's purposes. I think it's something, and for ourselves, if we get, I'm more than happy to start at 6 and not tail into 3.
Through the chair, the only caution that the CIO had was that we wanted to make sure that this did not impact professional obligations from our council members. They have work commitments that they have to adhere to, and we certainly understand and respect that. So if the 6 PM doesn't work with your current schedules, or perhaps other committees that you're invested in that may not allow that, that's certainly something that we have to consider as well.
So right now, the motion speculates 6 PM start versus the 6:30. Is all council in favor of that? Perfect. So back to the motion being read, all in favor of the motion and,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's not really a motion, it was just
Oh,
kind of a discussion
that's right, 'cause we're gonna
thing.
bring it
Yeah,
back,
we will
sorry.
bring it back,
Yeah.
but we'll embed those
so
changes.
embed those changes. Perfect. Thank you. Moving on to the unfinished business, 9.1, so the Housing Enabling Water System Fund from the 2024 intake.
The Council of the Township of North Stormont approve an amendment to the Aqua proposal approved originally on February 2024. The original Aqua proposal included a Schedule C that was required and included the completion of phases 1 and 2. During the review process, it was confirmed that phase 1 and 2 was being completed by RV Anderson as part of the master service plan, and that Council of the Township of North Stormont shift the funding from phase 1 and 2 to phase 5. Phase 5 is the design and execution of the Moose Creek Lagoon expansion project. There would be additional costs should construction, administrative, and project management be required, and further that currently there is no evidence to confirm that the original approved 90,000 for phase 1 and 2 will be exceeded. Should the addition of phase 5 provide evidence that costs will exceed the initial council approved 90,000, administration will report to council to endorse any additional expenditures. Total estimate fee structure remains unchanged as follows. Aqua fees, 90,000. Allowance for estimated consultant fees, 375,000. Aqua project variable expenses and fees, including travel for in-person meetings, 28,900. Contingency, 20% of Aqua and CE fees, 99,000. Total, exclusive of HST, 593,000. Moved by Deputy Mayor Densham, seconded by Councilor Bajelli.
Thank you. So before I go for questions from council, maybe the CAO, so if I correctly understand, the phase 1 and 2 now was incorporated in RV Anderson's fees to prepare the service master plan?
Through the chair, yes, phase 1 and 2 that were proposed by Aqua are already embedded in the master service plan, which is a positive for the township because it saves us a considerable amount of time. And again, the allocation for phase 1 and 2, which is around $21,000, can be reallocated to phase 5, which wasn't included in the proposal in February. So I know it's a somewhat confusing, but this was time sensitive, and at the direction or suggestion of our Aqua partners who are overseeing this project, they thought it prudent to bring forward a motion just for transparency, so council and the public understood what we were shifting the monies for. But there shouldn't be, at this point, we don't have any evidence to confirm that we will go or exceed that 90,000 that is suggested in the report.
So this, that you're saying about February, but when we awarded the work to RV Anderson, was Aqua not already aware that phase 1 and 2, so like in February, because I think it was, the project was awarded before that to RV Anderson in regards to the service master plan?
Through the chair, you're correct. That should have been, in my opinion, it should have been acknowledged in that, and phase 1 and 2 should not have been incorporated in that Aqua proposal.
Okay. Questions?
And Mr. Henderson can, Public Works can support or.
As far, my only concern is, or not, question is phase 5. So phase 1 and 2 are being now taken care of by the service master plan, and phase 5, just to get our heads wrapped around what exactly it is that we're gonna be paying for or putting funds aside for.
Yeah, phase 5 is actually implementing the project, what is recommended and that council accepts. So it'll be an overseeing of that. But in our application, it's all covered for extra fees in our application for the funding. So basically, whenever we did this, we had to have the, I believe, if I recall right, the resolution for us to go out and start the EA process. And RV Anderson it was kind of, yes, it's going to be incorporated, and they kept going, and we could have kind of done this, like, because Aqua charged by the hour. So basically, we could have done the EA at the same time, but we wanted to have that embedded in our application that we did hire a consultant who's doing the EA for this project. And that's why I think we got going quick in that time frame.
And if I can interject or add, our Aqua partners did indicate that part of the phase 5 is the design process. And Allison from Aqua did indicate that the phase 5 portion of fees and levels of effort required between Aqua and the consultant are unknown at this time, as it is solely dependent on the preferred solution determined at the end of Schedule C process. So there are going to be options the council's going to have to consider for our water and wastewater needs. And once those decisions are established, that's when we'll be able to kind of flesh out the costs associated with the design. But it's dependent on the decision of council for that. So we don't really have the costs associated fully with phase 5.
And my last question, so when we were establishing costs to determine the ask for the award or the successful grant that we received, was this 90 not part of it? Now mind you, it's gonna balance out between phase 1 and 2 being done with RV Anderson, but are we still in line basically with the money that we asked for this, so the 4.8 million that we received? Will this work itself out? Is that part of the allocation that we were thinking?
Yes, it was right in the application for Aqua, and there is also another, I was just trying to review it because all the confusion today, with another, one point some, or 750,000 for engineering in the application, in what we proposed. Anyway, no, it's actually professional design fees, engineering, and environmental class EA. The 750 for the design, engineering, and professional fees, and then the 593 is in our application for, because it all going to depend how many more studies that the consulting engineer has to do because of the process. That could be extra charges, but on their proposal, that's what they expect it could be, but it could be a lot more studies to complete the project. And when we built this into it, it's like we always put a money that we figure we don't want to under budget our project. So it's this basically in engineering fees and aqua fees, there's lots of money that they accepted in our proposal.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It is included in the application.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole purpose of this is to provide a scope change. If you say you're going to do A and you're not anymore and you're going to do C, council needs to approve that. So that's the biggest thing. It's not a monetary thing. It's a scope change that you need to be aware of.
Not at this point. And again, if there's monetary overages, that of course will be tabled at council.
And if they're under? That's what I want to hear. No, all good. So any further questions from or Deputy Mayor Densham?
More just a comment. This is going to be a huge investment in the long run that we want to do. We need to do it right. We need to do it well. I'm just picking up a little bit of ambiguous flavor to some of the wording on these. So the allowance for estimated aqua project variable expenses and fees, contingency, so, which is fine. It kind of implies that we don't know exactly what it's going to be. And I get that. But contingency, what I want us to really focus on is if we need to use a contingency, it should be for these deliverables. I've just seen in the past, sometimes we have a contingency amount to other projects and it doesn't get spent. And then we say, oh, we'll throw it in. We can kind of twist the definition of this into what we were trying to do as a major project. So it's just, let's be really careful because any money we don't spend now, I'm sure we will be spending it throughout the lifespan of this entire project.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I try my best to track any, like if there's change orders, for example, I'm tracking the school right now. I'm assuming with the size of this project, when these occur, they will be tracked accordingly, so council will be aware of where we stand.
Yeah, fair enough. And I don't think it's an accounting thing I've seen in the past, and not that. It's more, hey, we allotted this much contingency. Why don't we add a little bit of this and a little bit of that to the project that really wasn't in the scope of the project to begin with. I just don't think we have the bandwidth to be able to do this on such a big project as this. So, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, so all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. There's no new business or motion, so moving on to correspondence 12.1 to 12.3.
Be it resolved that the correspondence as listed as items 12.1 to 12.3 on the agenda be received. Moved by Councillor Bajelli, second by Councillor McDonald.
Any questions on receiving our correspondence? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Our next scheduled meeting will be held October the 8th, 2024. Now that definitely will be at 6:30.
Yes,
And then
yes.
possibly then depending on how our,
change, yeah.
how our procedural bylaw will govern if the October 22nd will be at 6 or 6:30, which could be amended at that time. So as far as coming events, anything? So right now, it's not scheduled yet, so there's talks, but we still have to come up with an actual date on that, so without any closed session tonight, we can move on to our ratification confirming bylaw.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 80-2024 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify council's actions at its regular meeting of September 24th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 24th day of September 2024. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Densham.
Any questions or concern in regards to ratify? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Moving into our adjournment.
Be it resolved that this regular meeting adjourn at 7:23 p.m.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, council, for tonight's session. Thank you for the people that joined us in-house and also the people online. Have yourself a great